Greetings Disney fans, welcome to this video about Disneyland Forward, where specifically it's more going to be Armchair Imagineering, some ideas for Disneyland Forward, and I'm actually going to be doing this as a multi-part video series, looking at various different aspects of the land Disney has to work with, over the next 30 years, assuming the Anaheim City Council votes yes on Disneyland Forward. Now, a brief reminder of what we're looking at here. Disneyland Forward is a ask of the city of Anaheim for new zoning for their property surrounding Disneyland and California Adventure and Downtown Disney. Now, the last time they got a major update to their zoning was back in the 90s. And so that was when they got the zoning for California Adventure, for Downtown Disney, for the Mickey and Friends parking structure, and all of that. And basically, the properties that are most in question with Disneyland Forward are the properties that they acquired after that current zoning went into effect. So we're talking about the Manchester Avenue property where they want to put a potential parking structure. We're talking about the Toy Story lot. They didn't acquire that until the late 90s. And that property is actually already zoned for theme park. They have to continually update their request to keep it parking for now. So more on that in a moment, because I do think that's an important piece. But also we're looking at where the now Pixar Place Hotel is, as well as the new-ish parking that is on Harbor and Ball Road, up just to the northeast corner compared to Disneyland. Now, so in a future video, we'll go over potential updates to California Adventure and potential updates to Disneyland. For this video in particular, I want to talk more about everything east of Harbor Boulevard. So we're talking about the Manchester Avenue Park, property where the Pumbaa lot is, and the buildings that they acquired over there, as well as the current Toy Story parking lot. Now, one of the big things Disney has had going in their favor lately is that the Anaheim Planning Commission recommended in a 5-1 vote for the City Council to approve Disneyland Forward. That's a good thing for Disney. And given that D23 tickets will be going on sale very soon, and given that they are moving the big parks presentation to the Honda Center instead of doing it at the Convention Center, I have a feeling that might just be because they are hoping that Disneyland Forward gets approved, and then they have big plans to announce, assuming that they get the green light from the city. So, what do I think is going to be the very first thing to happen if they get the approval? It's going to be the Eastern Gateway parking structure, which is when they acquired the USCIS building at Manchester, and they acquired one of the hotels that was across the street from Tomorrowland, roughly, and the shuttle drop-off. They had originally intended to turn what was then the Pumbaa parking lot into a large parking structure with moving the transportation drop-off zone to that and have the entrance for that part of it be from Manchester. The entrance for the parking would be off of Disney Way, and then everybody coming into the resort from that end, so all of your good neighbor hotel guests using the ART shuttles, anyone using Lyft or Uber, any of that, they would all be coming in through this new drop-off. And then they would be taking a pedestrian bridge over Harbor Boulevard and then entering the Esplanade. Their security checkpoint was going to be in the new Eastern Gateway area. And at the time that this concept imagery was first released, the USCIS still was under lease, so Disney couldn't do anything with that portion of the property. However, that lease ran out quite a number of years ago now. So if they were to try to move forward with a plan like this now, you should expect to see that parking structure be even bigger, because now they'd have access to that portion of the land that they own to do something with it. Basically, that whole property has been sitting behind a fence and they aren't touching it. Now, as a little bit more history, the only reason that they did the Pixar Pals parking structure is because the various businesses along Harbor Boulevard were complaining about this plan because they felt they were going to get undercut, like the McDonald's and the IHOP and all those felt they were going to be undercut because the guests that would have been just walking across the street on the ground level would have then been up above the street on that pedestrian overpass, and therefore not accessing their restaurants because of the fact that they were already through security checkpoint. They couldn't just, have a staircase in the middle of the pedestrian bridge so you could go down to those restaurants. Now, one of the concessions that Disney had tried to make at the time was to, at least for the hotels that were bordering this, was to give walking entrances to Eastern Gateway from those areas so that those hotel guests could just walk right on in and they wouldn't have to take the ART around or walk all the way around. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough because it wasn't necessarily those hotels that were leading the charge of no. Now, I don't know how much of this would stay the same, but a good chunk of it you can probably expect to be the same, with the exception of possibly making the parking structure bigger. And also, if they're having this be if this is going to be where the shuttle drop-offs are, I could also potentially see them putting in some sort of direct transportation between this project site and the Arctic Transportation Center, which is the public transportation into Anaheim. I could see a connector to get your locals over here without them having to just take a bus. Either way, they'd basically end up right here. Back in the day, there was a plan for a monorail route to go from Arctic over to Disney, all the way around the property, and then back over to Arctic. It was going to stop at the convention center and everything. Unfortunately, that didn't end up happening, but I do think we can maybe expect to see some sort of interesting transportation options down the line, and I'll go more into those in a future video as well. But I do think that if Disneyland Forward gets approved, this is the very first project that they are going to start on, because I don't think they can justify doing anything, whether it be developing the Toy Story lot or the Simba lot or the Stitch lot, unless they have another parking structure to alleviate the parking demands that are being filled by those existing lots. So I would keep your eyes open for this, maybe not this exact plan, but something similar to this. Maybe they move the security checkpoint to the other side of the bridge. I don't know. But keep an eye out for this. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about here is the Toy Story lot. Now, if we look at the initial concept art that Disney had put out when they were asking for the new zoning, they were teasing a Disney Springs type location here. I'm going to come out and say it. That would be an absolute waste of this land. It is the largest piece of land Disney owns in Anaheim that's within an easy distance of Disneyland and California Adventure. And it is the only piece of property that is big enough for a full theme park that they could build from the ground up. Now, down at the left of the screen, you can see what is the Anaheim Garden Walk, and I suspect that part of why they haven't, this is just a concept. They're not saying for sure, oh, we're definitely doing this. They still need the zoning approval anyway. Right now, that property is only zoned for theme park. They couldn't put a hotel there if they wanted to. And I could see them doing a Grand Californian or Disneyland Paris or Fantasy Springs style thing where they use a hotel as part of the berm for the property, especially on the residential side. I could see that. So I think there are elements of this that we might see. But they've been very vague. They haven't said anything about specific lands that, oh, we definitely want to do this. Even when they talk to the city, they're saying, imagine if we brought this one here. We've opened this over in Shanghai, or this in Hong Kong, or this in Florida. These are things that we could potentially bring to Disneyland. I wouldn't count any of those as, oh, it's absolutely happening. Now, I want to point out on the acreage here. So people will be like, well, but that property isn't that big. I beg to differ. Now, Disneyland Park, and we're mostly looking here at just the area of the park that guests can access here. That is 103 acres. Now, if we look at California Adventure, that is, again, mostly only areas that guests can access, with a little bit of backstage built in there, but it is still considered part of California Adventure. The only part of California Adventure that is not being included here is the Grand Californian footprint, and that is because that's a hotel, and it takes up quite a lot of ground, and it doesn't... the average guest at the park doesn't necessarily think of the hotel as part of the park. It technically is. So looking at that, DCA, its current footprint is approximately 73.7 acres. Now, Disney did tease wanting to do extensions of Disneyland and California Adventure in the orange highlighted area. That's the Stitch and the Simba parking lots. And that area is only 66 acres. I think if they're to use that area, it would be more likely to be split as Disneyland and California Adventure extensions, not a whole park. And actually, part of me would suggest, because you don't need a ton of acreage for it, a water park over there. Maybe on the Disneyland section. That could be fun. And then, well, how big is the Toy Story lot? That is 73.6 acres. It's about the same size as California Adventure is. Now, obviously, you'd lose a little bit of that due to backstage needs, and if they do any hotels on the property, and you would lose a little bit for some sort of transportation between the Disneyland Resort Hotel guests and this property, and the guests that park at Mickey and Friends and this property. I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but I do think that their smartest possible use of this property is a third park. And I think that the reason they were teasing a Disney Springs is to act as a smokescreen so that if they went to try to acquire Garden Walk from its current owners, they wouldn't necessarily be able to connect the dots completely on why Disney specifically wanted it, other than the one obvious piece being that it is the missing link between all of Disney's major Anaheim property, not counting their far off-site stuff for storage and all that, because they do have off-site storage. There's the cast store that you can go to if you're a cast member or friends with cast, and that's off-site as well. I don't remember exactly where it is, but it's not too far away. Point being here, I think that I think there's two reasons they aren't teasing a third gate here. I think number one, when they first announced the Disneyland Forward initiative, they just wanted to get the zoning because they wanted the idea of, well, what if we put a hotel over here? What if we had some shopping and some entertainment over here? That piece of the property wasn't zoned to have that. It was only zoned for theme park, and it has the temporary parking overlay that they have to reapply for every few years to keep it as a parking lot. The other thing that leads me to think that we might be getting a third park. Well, for one, California Adventure is now a pretty dang solid park. It does need a little bit of help here and there, especially in the Hollywood section. We'll go more into that in a later video. But one of the things that I want to point out is that Disney was originally planning on doing a third park back when California Adventure opened, and they called it Disneyland Resort for the first time. Now, they had even put out a website back at the time. One of the things on it was 2001 and Beyond, and they teased a third park. They, saying, what if Pooh's 100 Acre Wood was in Anaheim? Or Ariel and Sebastian found their new undersea home here? What if Anaheim could be home to not 2, but 3 Disney parks? Recent improvements to the Anaheim Resort and Disneyland Resort area anticipated future growth, making it possible for a well-designed third park to be added within the planned framework of the resort area. With this in mind, and with California Adventures opening in early 2001, Disney is working with the city of Anaheim to begin the planning and design process. Creating the magic of a new Disney park requires us to use a long-term view, said Cynthia Harris, president of the Disneyland Resort. A creative design, a careful planning process, an effective transportation and parking plan, and a quality family environment all must come together in cooperation with our neighbors. We are starting this process now, working with Anaheim residents, businesses, and civic leaders to identify opportunities that will ensure that the Anaheim Resort area remains a world-class destination for the decades ahead. As for the planning and environmental review process as that begins, so does the opportunity for public input and discussion. Creating a Disney park takes many years, and the future of the resort will be shaped by the planning that begins today. So, all the way back before California Adventure even opened, they were talking third park? And then, some of you that are watching might be younger and not know what happened. You might not have the memory of it, but California Adventure opened, and oh boy, it was a train wreck when it opened. Really, the only things that were popular are the things that are still there that were there at opening. So you have the Pacific Wharf Cafe was actually quite nice, and so was the Pacific Wharf area. Grizzly River Run was very popular. Soarin' Over California was so popular that it has been cloned at multiple Disney parks throughout the world, and even so popular that the ride manufacturer made a version of it that could be cloned outside of Disney. It was so popular. I don't think that they don't need to do anything with that. Screamin' was popular. It's been rethemed to the Incredicoaster, but the same ride. That's about it. That was popular in that park when it opened. They were so desperate to get attendance in that park that they brought the Main Street Electrical back from retirement and put it in California Adventure, saying, hey, watch a California Classic. Please come to our park. Please come. Why aren't people coming to this park? Oh, wait a second. That park was based on California, and you're in California, and there weren't a lot of Disney characters. Didn't we learn anything from Epcot? Well, we'll see. They even, when they opened the park, the ads were like, do our new neighbors need our help? And the characters were like, nah, they got this.
Heads up, Disneyland. We have a new neighbor.
The world ends at beginning.
Not from this coordinate, Miss White. They're from California. Ooh, nice limo.
Is there a prince inside?
Sorry, girls, but any interest in a 100-foot grizzly bear?
Introducing Disney's California Adventure, a whole new theme park filled with Disney adventures and fun, right next door to Disneyland.
Let's go see him. Easy, big guy. Nobody likes a nosy neighbor.
Call now to book your vacation at Disney's California Adventure.
And then, 10 years later, in comes Cars Land, in comes The Little Mermaid, Ariel's Undersea Adventure, in comes World of Color, in comes the pier being rethemed, before it got rethemed again. They did a massive influx of characters about a little over 10 years ago, about 15 years ago or so. And this was one of the first things Iger did when he came back, when he got put in charge of the company, was he was like, we need to fix California Adventure. This is not good. We need to fix this. And now it's a pretty darn solid park. Yeah, it needs some help, but it's solid. It's a solid park. It is, it's not Disneyland level solid yet, but it's getting there. So I just want to, make sure y'all are aware that, a third park has been part of the long-term plan for a very, very long time. And one of the reasons that I really think they're leaning towards this, Bob Iger has been very public about Avatar is coming to the Disneyland Resort. But he's been very quiet about where within the resort. Now, he recently did say, no, it's going to be a full land, just like in Florida. Okay, well, which park is it going to go in? Is it going to go in Disneyland? Is it going to go in California Adventure? And everyone's really been speculating about only those two, because those are the two that we know we have. And we know that they're trying to get expansion pads for both. Well, could it fit? Could it not? There's been speculation that it might replace the Motorboat Cruise and Autopia in Tomorrowland. There's been speculation that it could replace the north tip of the Hollywood section in California Adventure. There's been speculation that it would replace Soarin' because Flight of Passage is just a third-generation flying theater from Dynamic Attractions. Please, no, Soarin' is better. Sorry to burst your bubble, those of you that like Flight of Passage, but Soarin' is a better attraction overall than Flight of Passage, at least for this fan of the parks. Personally, I found Flight of Passage to be very uncomfortable while I was sitting on the ride, and how they had you restrained into the seats. It was uncomfortable, and it took me out of the experience. If I could have just been sitting in a natural position, I probably would have enjoyed it more. So please don't replace Soarin', which is actually fun, with Flight of Passage, which, unless they did some significant changes to the ride restraint system, you can count on me not riding a clone of that if it gets brought over here. And also some people are speculating, well, what if they replace Grizzly River Run? Have you seen the wait times on either Soarin' or Grizzly? I don't think either of those need replacing. Soarin', when I check the app, I frequently see near anywhere between a 30-minute and a 120-minute wait, typically higher. Grizzly River Run, when it's open, if it's a hot day, oh, it's gonna be packed over there. Neither of those rides need a significant overhaul. In my opinion, that portion of Hollywood that has been speculated as maybe that's where it's going to go is too small. The Avatar expansion was about the same acreage as Cars Land. You can't fit Cars Land in the corner of Hollywood that people are talking about for this. It's just, it's too small. Not to mention all of the mental gymnastics one would have to do to place Avatar within California Adventure. Okay, the park is called Disney California Adventure. Let's put Avatar in. Wait, what does Avatar have to do with California? Was it filmed in California? No. Was it taking place in California? No. Were even any of the characters from California? No. Wait, then what does it have to do with California Adventure? I don't know. That park has room, so it should have it. What? No. I think the primary reason that Iger has not been specific about the location for Avatar yet is because they're waiting for Disneyland Forward to get the green light from the city, and it is going to be an opening day land within a third park at the Toy Story property. Guaranteed attendance. It's going to bring in travelers, and especially if they were to do what I think is the smart thing and make Disneyland's Avatar be different from Florida's, and instead of having it just be the floating rocks and Flight of Passage, have it be a ride based on Way of Water. That would be, at least that would be different. Now, the other day, my pal and I were talking about ideas at work while we were dead, and we were talking about, well, what are some concepts we would like to see if Disney were to do a third park? Well, for one, I want a Villain's Land. I don't want that blue sky maybe that they're talking about in Florida. I want a Villain's Land. I think that'd be really fun. Now, I don't know exactly how you do it, but I think your centerpiece would have to be Maleficent's castle to counter Sleeping Beauty's castle over in Disneyland. I just think the villains offer so much that you can work with. And then the other thing that I would add to this is if they were to do a Villain's Land, you gotta at that point move the Halloween parties into this park. I mean, you're not going to have a Villain's Land in one of the parks and not have the Halloween party where the Villain's Land is. That would be counterintuitive. So I think if they were to give us a Villain's Land, I think Halloween parties, we can assume, will move over to this park. Another thing that we were talking about, I had suggested, oh dude, Pirates of the Caribbean at Shanghai is so cool. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I love the classic ride at Disneyland, and I was like, would it be too much to ask for the Shanghai Pirates? And my buddy, shout out to Mr. RCT3 is epic. And I'm going to drop a link to his channel in the description of this video. He had an even better suggestion, and I just about lost it when he said it because I was like, oh my god. He said, now let me pull up the exact quote of what he said. It was so good that we had to actually write it down. He said, no one knows how far they'll go. As in, Moana, Moana using the Shanghai Pirates of the Caribbean ride system. Yes, please. For those of you unfamiliar with that ride, just look at the video playing in the corner, and you'll have a better idea of some of the cool effects in that ride. But one of the things that I find so unique about that ride is that it's not just your typical boat ride. Your boat can travel this way, not just this way. Now, and one of the things that really, really sold me on this idea is the portion of the ride where you're in between the two ships and they're fighting each other, and you're just like, oh, I'm in the middle. Oh, boy. Put it in Moana terms, the Kakamora attack. No, okay, I'm sold. 100% sold. This would be a fantastic attraction. Yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. Let alone the fact that we don't have room in Adventureland for a Moana attraction, and that is really the only land within Disneyland or California Adventure that it would work thematically. And if you were to somehow tie in the Way of Water architecture and transition over to Moana, oh, that could be beautiful. Oof. Yeah. Sign me up. A few other things we talked about. Now, personally, Bella's my favorite of the Disney princesses. And I would love the Beauty and the Beast attraction from Tokyo. Oh, that would be so fun. That would be the guaranteed attendance to get me into that park, is if it has that ride. Because I'd have to be seeing that ride every visit, no matter what. And one of the other things we talked about, a Muppets Land. Because we both love the Muppets. We both feel like Muppets are very, very underutilized at the Disneyland Resort, especially ever since Muppet Vision closed. One of his pitches. Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Electric Mayhem. Okay, I'm someone who doesn't like roller coasters with inversions. Even I would ride that because I love the Muppets so much. I would absolutely ride this. One of the things I was thinking was a concept that I think was originally supposed to be done in Florida and it just never came to be. But something like, well, maybe not with the ride vehicles of the Great Movie Ride, but a Great Muppets Movie Ride where you would be riding through scenes of the Muppets doing various different Disney movies from all across the entire Disney slate. Muppets reenacting Star Wars, Muppets reenacting Indiana Jones, Marvel, Pirates of the Caribbean, various Disney animated movies, live action movies, some of the Fox movies. That would be a really fun attraction. I would have so much fun with that. I would absolutely love it. Chef's kiss. Do it. One of the other things we were talking about was, well, are there any lands that have been in any of the other parks that we would maybe want to see? And personally, I like seeing the parks have their own identities and not just, well, we're building it over here, so let's build it over here and over here and over here. With a couple franchises that make sense. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, it makes sense. It's such a big franchise. Of course they had to do it on both coasts. Avatar somehow is a big moneymaker in the box office. Again, it makes sense. But I like that Cars Land is unique to California Adventure. I like that the Matterhorn is a unique attraction. I like when each park has something that it can call its own and not necessarily, well, we got this, but it's also over there. There are certainly elements from various parks that I wouldn't mind seeing brought over, but for the most part, I would rather see a ride system repeated with a different story than a whole land. And the other thing is that I would encourage them to not just have this park be single IP land, single IP land, single IP land, single IP land. Because what that does in the long run is it really boxes you in. Moana's a very hot property right now, but even I wouldn't do a full land for Moana. Because what happens in 10, 15, 20, 30 years when Moana's not so popular anymore? And now they got this whole land themed to it? Oh, shoot. Now in order to do anything, they'd have to retheme an entire land. They can't just retheme one ride. Sea Splash Mountain. Sea Mission Breakout. See Winnie the Pooh replacing Country Bears. Oh boy. So this is why I am a proponent of still having lands that can house multiple IPs within them. So I don't necessarily want a full Zootopia land. A Zootopia attraction, absolutely, but a full land? That seems a bit much. Frozen as a full land? It seems a bit much. I'd rather see like a mini land for Frozen, and we'll go more into this when I talk Disneyland, because I do think if we get Frozen, it's going over there. But that's what I was thinking. Now, like, Tokyo is about to open Fantasy Springs. Looking at that, is there anything from that I really like the idea of? And I was like, well, what if we got something similar to a Fantasy Springs, but with a different combination of stories that are being adapted? So what if we got just the Tangled portion being the same? So we would get Rapunzel's full-on tower with a dark ride, or I think it's a boat ride, actually, for that matter. And then we got the Snuggly Duckling restaurant. For me, that would be enough for Tangled. I don't need more than that. Have Rapunzel's tower be the base of it be where Rapunzel and Flynn do meet and greets. Have the restaurant and have the main ride. But what would be the other Fantasyland type movies to put in a Fantasy Springs type area to round it out? Well, maybe that's how we get Beauty and the Beast with a larger presence in California. For all we know, there will be a new movie that'll be big and we'll want to see represented. Maybe that's how we get Moana, because Moana is still fantastical. It could work within that framework. Maybe, there's so many movies that Disney has that would fit in Fantasyland that don't have an attraction. Shoot, Brave. The unfortunate thing is Disney doesn't really promote Brave the way that they do some other movies, and so I'm not sure how it does on popularity now, but I think Merida is a very fun character, and I think you could do something in the parks with her. That'd be fun. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my pal's desperate plea for, please give us Tron. Now, if we got a generic sci-fi land within this park, I would put it in this park. Again, guaranteed attendance boost. Otherwise, I would see if there's a way to put it in Tomorrowland without having to do something completely different from the existing Tron attractions. But I'll go more into that when I talk Disneyland in a future video. So for the Toy Story lot, I'm thinking Avatar. I'm thinking Villains. I'm thinking Muppets. I would also like to see some of those Fox properties get utilized. Disney spent billions on Fox. So far, the only thing from Fox that I've seen at Disneyland Resort so far was One of the villains' dance parties in Tomorrowland, I saw a video of villains dancing to the time warp. That's it. Now, if we're getting Avatar, that's part of Fox. But what else from Fox could be interesting for an attraction? Personally, I think Planet of the Apes could lend itself to an interesting attraction, much like Jurassic Park does over at Universal. I think that could be fun. A Planet of the Apes attraction. Oh, that could be so much fun. But yeah, I think there's a good chance we are going to get a third park here in at Disneyland Resort. I'm not in Anaheim myself, but I think Disneyland Resort, I think there's a good chance that they're going to announce a third park at D23 this year. I think there's a reason that they put it in a bigger venue. I think they have big announcements. And imagine just being at that panel and Josh D'Amaro comes out on stage, brings out Bob Iger, and they say, you know, we didn't want to finish this panel with what we've talked about so far. We need to bring it back to Disneyland now. And this would be after they've already given us some details on Tiana's, if it hasn't opened yet, or potentially that Avengers e-ticket, and maybe another couple small things. Well, if they get the Disneyland Forward approval, I can easily see them being like, you know, we're not done yet. We still got something else we need to talk about. Or maybe Bob Iger just comes out to say it, and Josh is like, wait, I thought we weren't ready to say it. And Bob Iger goes, no, it's time. And Josh then goes, all right, you heard the boss. Today we are ready to announce that we are doing a third park here in Anaheim just down the road. We're not ready to divulge everything about it yet. You can expect to see more details later. But for now, we want to give you this. This will be the home of Avatar. This will be the home of, you know, a few different franchises that they know will bring people in. The room would go ecstatic at that news. I think there's a decent chance of it. Now, obviously, it's not set in stone. The city hasn't passed Disneyland Forward yet, and it would be a few years before they could get a park open. It's going to be a few years before they can get an Avatar section open if it has to replace something else. No matter where they're going to put Avatar, it's going to be a few years before it can open. If I was in Demaro's position, I would be pushing for Avatar to be in the third park. In part to be a guaranteed attendance boost for that park on opening. So there we have it. That's what I wanted to touch on in this video, was the Avatar of it all, the Eastern Gateway of it all, and the potential third park. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I will be putting out a few more videos coming soon on the Disneyland Forward topic. I'm going to try to get these all done in the next few weeks. It would be really great if I have enough time to actually get these done before my next Disneyland trip, where I will hopefully be able to get some footage for one of the videos that I would like to, that I have in the pipeline already, but I wanted to get some actual in-park footage for. So, hope you're all having a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.